Hello again. I'm here. I've stepped out of Evidence Live on a scorching hot Wednesday afternoon to have a quick chat with Caroline Fiennes, who's Director of Giving Evidence. Hello, Caroline.
Hi, Doug.
Thanks for taking a bit of time to talk to us. Maybe you could give us a quick overview of your session on evidence-based giving.
So the organisation that I run is called Giving Evidence because we promote charitable giving based on sound evidence. That is evidence both about what to fund and also about how to fund. And it's fair to say that the charitable world and philanthropic world are a long way behind medicine in terms of how sophisticated we are in producing and using evidence. So the reason that I come to Evidence Live and hang out with EBM people is because honestly it's like a trip to the future. It's like seeing what the world can look like once there has been some decades of work on production and use of evidence. And so the session that I always joke that I'm here on a tourist visa and it's kind of them to let me come, let alone do a session. The session that I did was really a consultation with some of the people here in which I explained where we have got to in terms of evidence about what to fund and how to fund. And then I asked the people who were there what they would do from their understanding of evidence-based medicine, what they think the learnings are about what we in charities and philanthropy should do next, what pieces of information infrastructure or architecture should we build, what should we not build. So for instance, I've heard people in EBM say that guidelines for practitioners are marvellous, and I've heard people say they are dreadful. So I was interested in the collective experience of a bunch of EBM people on what is worth building within charities and philanthropy and what is not worth building.
That's very interesting. Do you think there's also some learning that needs to happen in the other direction? So is there anything that the EBM community can learn from your experiences in working with funders?
Very little, I would say. I think the learning mainly goes the other way. The big difference is that in medicine there are many actors who are scientists who think their job is to find out the truth and to publish it and to share it, and who are trained to do that. There are also many people who are independent, so they are GPs or they are researchers. In the charitable and philanthropic world, there's almost nobody who thinks their job is a scientist. There's almost nobody who thinks their job is to work out what is the most effective intervention for getting homeless people off the street, for example, or what is the most effective way of running a domestic violence refuge, for instance. There's hardly anybody who thinks of themselves as a scientist or that their job is the pursuit of truth in that way. And there's also hardly anybody who is independent. So almost everybody is either a funder or they are pitching for funding.
Right, so that disentanglement of people's conflicts of interest is, that's a similar story to what we hear about research funding and about allegiance bias and things like that within research. I'm wondering then, what do you think are the priorities for evidence-based giving? What are the areas you think we can focus on first? Because there's obviously, it's a huge area, and as we know from Evidence Live, there are still huge issues with clinical evidence and how we put it into practice. Where do you think are the areas that you could have the most impact and you will focus on?
Well, I think there's broadly two. One is that we need a lot more evidence produced about what is effective, both in terms of what to fund, so which interventions and which organisations to fund, and also which ways of giving are effective, so what to fund and how to fund. The second thing is to stop the production of so much rubbish impact research, poor quality impact research, what Doug Altman this morning called bad research. So often charities are asked to measure their own impact, to do monitoring and evaluation, that is to produce research on which they will get judged. And therefore we have all the kinds of problems that you would expect, that research is poor quality, it's biased, it's massively over-flattering to those organisations. So I would like to stop the production of that rubbish. Some of it is all right, some of it is useful, but a lot of it is rubbish, and I have been quite outspoken about that. And you can tell that it's rubbish because hardly anybody uses it to make decisions, so it actually wouldn't be detrimental in any way if we were to stop the production of most of it, and instead to focus on the production of much higher quality evidence about what to fund and how to fund. And I think that research needs to be produced not by individual charities or even individual funders, but by qualified researchers. So, research should be produced by people who are qualified and skilled and, by the way, incentivized to do it properly. So, the person who should be looking at identifying the best ways of getting homeless people off the street should be a researcher who is independent and who is equipped to do that research. And in my view, they should not be on the payroll of an organisation which runs some interventions in that area and which seeks funding for doing that. Then we need to have the production of much more high quality and independent research which compares interventions with each other, ideally compares them on a cost effectiveness basis, which can inform decisions by funders about what to fund and by operating organisations about what interventions to run.
That's very interesting. It's very, similar to the many of the conversations around professional development and about outcome measures that affect social care and political programmes and education. So I'm delighted to have spent 5 minutes with you. Thanks very much.
Thank you for having me.